we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at some other things that jQuery can do. In the next couple of lessons, we're going to be looking at how jQuery can hide and reveal elements on the page. This is the page that we're going to be working on, and it's just a page that's about screwdrivers, and it talks about screwdrivers, and then it has a bunch of paragraphs that are basically the history of the screwdriver. This right here is a text-based link, and you can see that it changes colors when I hover over it. So that's what the page looks like by default in the browser. If we go ahead and look at our HTML code, we basically have a div called container, which wraps around everything that's inside the body. If we come down after the first couple of paragraphs, there is a div called info box, and it basically wraps around the history header, the text button, and all of the paragraphs that follow. Here's my header right here. Then I have a div with a class of read more that contains the link inside of it. And then I have a div called hide box, which basically wraps around all of the paragraphs that are inside of the history section. And you can see that here's the divs close for those various items. So we also have a link to an external style sheet, so let's just jump over and look at the style sheet real quick. My style sheet just has some pretty basic styles. I have the universal selector that's zeroing out all margin and padding. There's a background image attached to the body. The H1 and the H2s are being colored red. I have all these elements, some of which are not being used on this particular page, but they have a padding bottom of 15 pixels. I have the container, which is the div that wraps around everything that appears within the body tag, and it's just doing some basic formatting, styling the text, the width of the container, centering the container, putting a background image in there, and then adding some padding on the top and on the left. On the info box div, I just have set the position to relative. On the read more div, I've specified some height, positioned it absolutely, and told it where I wanted it to be located. And then I am styling the read more a link, and I'm adding the screw image to the left and just going ahead and specifying some attributes for the link as well as the hover. So that's the CSS. In addition, I have links to these two JavaScript files. One, of course, is linking to the jQuery library, and then this one is linking to a file called o1scripts.js, which is just a blank JavaScript file that's waiting for us. So we'll be working in that. So this is the file that we're starting with. What we're going to be doing first and foremost is we're going to go ahead and we're going to hide all of the paragraph text when the page is loaded. So it'll show these two paragraphs. It's going to say history, it's going to say display, and then all of these paragraphs are going to be hidden. So let's go ahead and let's address that. I'm going to come back into my code and we'll jump into our script file because we're going to put all these things into the script file. And of course, the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set the document ready. So we'll go ahead and we'll type the document ready. I'm going to make my $, the universal selector for jQuery, and then in parentheses I'll write document, and then we're going to put .ready, and we'll go ahead and create the function that is going to occur, and we'll open close the parentheses, not passing on any parameters. We'll open the curly brace, and then let's just close the curly brace, close the parentheses, and add a semicolon for the end of our document ready function. So what do we want to have happen when the document is actually loaded, when the page is loaded? Well, what we want to do is we want to hide all of these paragraphs. So if we look in our HTML code, you can see that those paragraphs are wrapped inside of a div with a class called hide box. So it would make sense that we could basically target that div and tell it to hide. So let's go ahead and let's write just one line of code that will allow us to do that. I'm going to put a $, open the parenthesis, open my single quotes, and I'll put the name of the class that I want to hide. It's called hide box. And then we're going to go ahead and pass on what we want to have happen. We're going to use .hide as the actual action, and we'll open close the parentheses and the semicolon. So this should do it. I'm going to save the file, and if we go back to our browser and we reload the page, you'll notice that now all of that text has disappeared. So the text that was under history is no longer visible. So that's perfect. We are now able to hide elements on the page using Document Ready.